And today, the guest that I have with me is one who's broken glass ceilings wherever she's gone. She's a generous mix of competence and empathy. It's none other than Gulzari. I have always admired her from afar for all the work that she does and how put together she is with all the challenges that she handles. So, thank you so much, Gulzareen, for being here on the show, for agreeing to come and have a conversation with me.
Thank you so much for having me over. I feel that this conversation is going to be really interesting because of what I know of you. You're a great communicator as well. And I would love to share my stories with a person like yourself.
Thank you, Gul. So, Gul, you know what? With professionals, we are always talking about work. You know, क्या पॉलिसीज हैं, क्या प्रोसीजर्स चल रहे हैं, ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल स्ट्रक्चरल चेंज को आप कैसे देखते हैं एज लीडर्स. But today I really want to know who Gul is, who she is as a person. And why is because I want the younger lot, especially the younger lot, to know what it takes to be where, for example, if they want to be where you are in the future. So tell me a little about yourself. What was it like for you to grow up as an ambitious, little girl in a family of yours?
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much for letting me bring the inside me and the goal, which is not there most of the time at the workplace. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. So I grew up in a very traditional Pathan household where generally girls are not expected to make a career. My father was the deviant one right from the beginning, and I think I picked that from him. So he was always of the view that, no, I'm going to get all of my kids educated, not just the boys. So, and I had two brothers, and a sister was way younger. So I was mostly under the influence of my brothers. So for a long time, I kept on thinking of myself as a boy. Anyways, so my father really heavily invested in our education, not just in terms of money, but in terms of time, in terms of, being there, giving us the right support system. And then my mother. She was, I think, the driving force behind all of us because she was a perfectionist. And she wouldn't settle on anything less than a perfect 100 or a perfect A for that matter.
Right.
So that, I think, seeded this very strong sense of of a sense of accomplishment, sense of being ahead of the curve always, which I think is still coming along with me. And I think it's a very important part of me, and it would be difficult for me to shed it off.
Yeah. And it's part of the aura that you carry, right?
Maybe, yeah.
So how is it for you as someone who's competent and always ahead of the curve, always, keeping track of the new trends that I've noticed आपके LinkedIn पे, and whenever you've spoken about the latest what's happening, that is always on your radar. How is it to then be so empathetic at the same time and understanding? So these two sometimes clash.
Yeah, it's a very good question, I must say. See, there's this saying that when I was younger, I thought I knew everything. And as I grew older, I got to know that I know nothing. And that's what intellectual humility is. And that's what you start getting as you grow older, as you read more, as you meet new people you start to learn that, oh, what I know is just a bit, and there's a whole lot more out there to learn. And that always ignites this very profound quest inside me to be curious all the time. And I feel when you're curious, and when you know that you don't know, that's when you become humble. And that humility then brings in a lot of empathy, because now I'm not standing in a place where I think I can condemn the other person for not being their best self, or not being who I want them to be, or the society wants them to be. Rather, you understand that they're just humans like me, and I have no right actually to moralize. And yes, when it comes to work, you need to get the work done as well. But then if you take care of the whole person that is working with you, I feel it becomes easier for the person who's working with you, and for you as well, to make a good team and lead with empathy. So I hope I've answered your question.
You have, and you've said, I mean, you've spoken so beautifully about it. A few of the lines that you've said can be quoted also.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, can be used as quotations. So that's beautiful. But Gul, I'd like to know, if you were to ask little girl, if this is where they'd be, what would she have said about it?
Oh, I think the little girl would have been very pleasantly surprised. Because, as I said, that I come from a family where women generally do not belong to workplace. Yeah. And even as a kid, although I know I was into education and I was getting raised with my brothers who were into sports, and I was into sports as well, but still, the little girl would have never thought that this is where I'd be. And even for that matter, the adolescent girl would not have a thought of where I would be, where I am right now. I was just having this conversation yesterday with a colleague of mine, and I was telling that sometimes I look back and I think to myself, oh, how far I've come from the person who I used to be. Because my first degree, and so in my undergrad, I had English literature, economics, and political science. And then I went on to take literature as my degree for masters. So, from Dante's Inferno and from T.S. Eliot to the Excel sheets, into the PowerPoint presentations, into the boardroom conversations, it's a long journey.
It's been a journey.
Yes. So even the adolescent girl would never have a thought that I would be doing what I'm doing right now.
I think, and that's why you also can see other people's journey. When you're mentoring, you're speaking with them, you're connecting, you feel like, I mean, maybe they're not there yet, but it's a journey.
Yes, right? Yes. So I remember very clearly that there was one team member who was, I was a very young manager at that time, and I was sitting with one of my coaches, and I told him that, sometimes I just feel stuck, and I just feel like, why aren't things moving? And he said, you remember when you were younger and you were making mistakes, and there was somebody who held your hand and brought you out of that? It's now your turn to do the same for somebody else. And I think that has stuck with me since then. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And so when you said that, he asked you to think of the time when you were stuck in someone, so who's that one person, and who's really had an impact on your life and helped you come out, or show you what success is, or what it could feel like, and it's been there with you?
Yes. Life is a journey, and you meet so many people all the way. And I can't say that it's one
Woman, yeah.
person, right? Um, I always say that we are just sum total of all of our experiences and the meaningful interactions that we have had, right?
Hmm.
So I have been extremely lucky, Alhamdulillah, to always have gotten an amazing support system, amazing mentors, amazing guides, amazing line managers who've held my hand throughout this journey, who've
Journey.
been there, and sometimes even if they're not there, I know that they're sitting in the pavilion and clapping for me.
Oh, how lovely.
So yeah, but if I was to pick one person, my mother will
Hmm.
kill me for this, but that's going to be my father,
Oh.
because just like
Hmm.
any young kid, he's always been a role model. He's a very, very hardworking, very truthful, very transparent, a person with very high moral and value compass. So yeah, it's gonna be him. Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful is that? And would you say it's right to say that, when you are, I mean, if you have someone who's supporting you from the opposite gender in your family, the way it empowers you. I mean, it definitely is that, the same gender, like mother for women or sisters, if they're there to support, for sure. But when the father or the brother, they support you, they validate you, they push you forward,
Yes.
that has a
Yes.
altogether different
Yes.
impact.
I feel it has a more profound impact on your personality, and especially if I were to bring that to the workplace as well. The level of comfort that I've always had in talking
Hmm.
to senior leaders comes from the fact that I have had amazing conversations with my dad and some of his friends and colleagues, and
Hmm.
they were so well accomplished in their own lives. So having been exposed to that kind of environment from a very young age, then
Hmm.
then really instilled that confidence in me that I can interact and expose myself to senior leadership very comfortably. So yeah, I
That's
absolutely agree with you.
That's thank you so much for highlighting this, because just a few days ago it just hit me. Oh, probably it's because, I mean, when women sit in conversations where that usually women don't have these or didn't have these kind of conversations back then,
Yes.
when I was growing up, when you were growing up.
Yes.
So probably having to sit in conversations where men would talk about the world, the politics, the work, so they enable you to have those conversations later on, right?
Yes,
Because it
for
doesn't feel
sure.
very, yeah.
Yes.
I like that. And so, what is that one advice that you'd like to give to young fathers, men out there? How can they empower women around them?
I think the advice would go out not just for young fathers or fathers for that matter. The advice is for everybody out there,
Hmm.
um, in the opposite gender, if I have to be more specific about that, that it it is, when you put gender divides, and when you have your big boys club, when you have your bro code, what you're doing is you are actually excluding 50% of the population from your narrative, from your conversations, from your interactions. And that is not just going to hurt them because they are being excluded. It's going to hurt you as well because you're not going to be a well rounded person because
Hmm.
you've just shut your eyes to a big
To huge,
reality which is
yeah.
there. So the advice is that, and it's not just between men versus women, it's
Hmm.
whenever there's a majority and a minority, or there's a group in power and then there's a marginalized group, it's the
Hmm.
responsibility of the group in power, to try and balance the ground so that everybody has a leveled playing field.
Hmm.
And that's when you're going to make a great team altogether, and that great team is not just for workplace. that great team is at home as well.
Yeah.
Because as you very rightly pointed out, when you mentioned young fathers specifically, that if I'm a homemaker and I'm working with my kids and for my kids 24/7, oh, that's part of being a mother.
Mother, yeah.
Oh, and oh, he's such a good father. He took the son to the park for a walk. Wow, that's how the
That's how the
society is.
society, yeah.
But I feel as we are growing in all domains of knowledge, be it technological advancement, be it intellectual advancement, men now need to understand that they also have to shatter all of these social norms, and they have to really partner with their
Yeah,
partner
that is.
to raise kids
Yeah.
who are more well-rounded, who are more confident, and who did not spend their lives with an absent father.
Father, yes.
So yeah,
yes.
so that's going to be my
Yeah.
advice.
So, like, work-life balance has to be in action for the fathers as much as the mothers.
Yes.
So, both can be present for the kids.
Yes,
And so,
absolutely.
talking about kids, what was it like for you when you were working, building a career with young, children? How was it? I'm sure it was very, very tough. But
Yes.
how did you navigate that?
Yeah. So when we were having a conversation off the camera, you mentioned um, this expectation from women to have it all. Yeah. They should look put together and yet not vain. They should have a great career, but not at the cost of their kids.
So true.
So yeah, we have all these expectations from women, and I'm not different. I went through that journey as well. Where colleagues would come and say, "Oh, you look like you don't have to work. So why are you here? Why aren't you with your kids?" And sometimes I'd ignore that statement. I'd just laugh it off. But on others, I'd say there's one thing which is called self-actualization, which is highest on the Maslow's needs hierarchy.
Yeah.
So probably that's what is bringing me here. However, once I was listening to Indra Nooyi, she's somebody I really follow, and she said that the biggest myth is having it all. Yeah. There are always going to be trade-offs. It's just that those trade-offs have to be more mindful, and you should have the grace to understand that you cannot have it all, because if you will try to do that, you're actually spreading yourself a little too thin, and that's not a sustainable thing to do. But whatever trade-offs you're making, as I said, those have to be very mindful trade-offs. You should be where you're needed the most. So if there are days when my kids need me the most, I ought to be there. But if there are days when the work needs me more, then I ought to be there. So it's really really navigating through life on a day-to-day basis. There's no one formula which fits all, or one size which fits all. You just have to pick what is more important for you in that particular moment, and then be there.
And through it all, then your decision making also sharpens over time, right? This or that, right? How much of this, how much of that, and that happens, and it gets easier, right?
Absolutely,
it does.
It never gets easier. I tell you, it never gets easier. Because
you get stronger.
You get stronger. You become more resilient.
Yeah.
You've been through so much that there's always this hope inside you. Oh, if I've been through that, this too shall pass, right? And in my mantra is, which I picked up from one of the executive coordinators that we have. We still have her, but when her line manager was my CEO, and there would be days when I would be flustered, and I'd go and I'd just stand by with her, and she'd just say, just take one day at a time. Just take one day at a time. And in her sweetest, most kind voice, the voice still rings in my head whenever I'm flustered. So I think that's what it is. That you have to take it one day, one stride, one moment at the time. Sometimes when life is, and it's, it's pressurizing you from left, right, center. That's when you have to take it probably one step at a time. But whenever you have more time, and when you can, then it's always worth the while to look more long term as well.
Long term as well. Right. Thank you. Not to, forget that there's this long term goal also. But at the same time, one day at a time. And someone reassuring you, and that voice that you just mentioned, that. So, cool, we've talked about all of this, but I'd like to ask you one last question. And that is, what is that one failure? And has there been any failures?
Of course.
And what is that one failure that you're really proud of? Yeah, I did that, and I might not do it again, but I did that, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, so I feel that failures and mistakes are a huge part of whoever I am, right? If you were to ask me that, is there a failure that I'm proud of? No, because then that would not have been a failure. If I've been able to get learnings out of it, yes. There's so many of them. I think my life is ridden with, constantly falling through the cracks and then picking myself up and putting my act together and then, moving on. But I feel that I did make a career move, which if I look back now, helped me introduce to some of the greatest people and greatest friends that I know. But it was not very wise career move, and that's why I switched from that place very quickly. So that's one mistake or failure of judgment at my part that I would
that you would call.
Yeah.
But what counts is that, and the key takeaway is that once you've made a mistake, one, owning, accepting, and then moving forward.
Yes,
right?
Yes. So there's a very famous method which is used with people who are in which was used by research scientists for people who are in prison, and it says that I'm sorry, and then it says thank you, and then it says I love you. These three words, because when you're saying you're sorry, you're being humble enough to accept that you've made a mistake. And then when you say, I forgive, you're actually forgiving yourself. And then when you say, I love you, you're telling yourself that, yes, you failed on something, but I still love you. And the kind of energy that it generates in your body is amazing.
Indeed. And how simple and yet so profound.
Yes.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Kulsini, for coming here, for taking out the time, and for being so vulnerable. I feel like more leaders need to be vulnerable like yourself and share their stories. I'm so glad that you agreed, and I look forward to having more of such discussions with you. And I feel like men and women alike, professionals would have so many key takeaways to take from this conversation. You're so well spoken, shows what you studied.
I hope.
Thank you.
I hope I've been able to touch some chords somewhere, and even if there's one person whose perspective would have changed post this conversation, I think I'm successful. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.